All right, recording started. So welcome to today's meeting. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Okay, we have a couple of things on the agenda. Do we have the speaker from the first agenda item?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Hey, how are you? Maybe you can do a quick intro about yourself. I don't think everybody knows about you in the community, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, hey, folks, I'm Anirban. This is my second time attending the working group meeting. I'm just here to discuss a proposal that I have in place. But yeah, that's a brief about it. Yeah.
All right, great. Thanks for the intro. So let's jump into the topic you want to discuss.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah. Hey, folks. So this is a proposal to support HTTP upgrades using a new field in the destination tool API. So to set some context around this, we have a set of a particular type of clusters where a certain set of clients aren't allowed to talk to the API server directly, but instead the request passes through an Istio ingress gateway, which forwards it. As a result, the kubectl port forward and exec commands from these clients fail, since these commands still use PD. The transition from Speedy to WebSockets for these commands will be stable in version 1, Kubernetes version 1.33. And since we are running in a controlled environment, it will take us at least 18 months, if not more, before we can upgrade all of our clusters to 1.33. So this proposal is intended to be a general case of this HTTP to Speedy upgrade, in which we expose an upgrade config in the destination tool API. And for each push request, we would patch the network filters associated with the specified listeners. So yeah, essentially, I'm looking to get consensus on this proposal from this group here. Yeah, happy to answer any questions.
So can I ask, is it, I saw you have alternative considered. Are these alternatives serve your purpose at the moment or no? Can you do it in Envoy Filter API? I assume that's my first question. The second question, I assume the alternative is making a change to the proxy config. Is that true?
Yes, that's right. Yes, it is possible to do it via an on-web filter API. However, it's just that we kind of discourage our users to rely on web filters generally, and essentially we don't want to, like, we would definitely not want to set a precedent right now with this particular use case, and if possible maybe accomplish this using a first class Istio API. Regarding the second point, John, about DR not being able to mutate HCM, can we not use the LDS generator to sort of uh, parse the push request and then mutate the network filters associated with the patch?
I think what John is saying, because I think he's in another meeting, but I think what John is saying is that the destination rule currently only modifies the resulting cluster, the resulting envoy cluster. And as a result, that's not going to allow you to change the HTTP controller manager in Envoy. So it's sort of at the wrong level. If that's the case, then this would have to be, goodness, I don't even know, and something like service entry, or no, that's still cluster level. I don't even know where the right place for this would be in the API. Because this is for, you're talking about upgrades for things on outbound It's the outbound listener. So yeah, it'd be like on the service config or like I don't know. Destination will sound right to me, but apparently it can't modify the HCM, so that's pretty tough from an API level.
Do we have I guess I remember in destination rule we have the ability to upgrade from H1 to H2. Is that right? Oh, it's been a while since I built one.
Yeah, I think we have that. Yes.
Okay. But yeah, I agree. Destination rule that feels right. But the technical challenging we have to solve too.
Because the H1 H2 upgrade is just ALPN change, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit different than sort of the Connect upgrade. Envoy's Connect upgrade support is sort of strange and kind of unwieldy. So to do Connect for WebSockets, well, you're not even doing WebSockets specifically. You're doing Spitty, right?
I mean, we could make it generic, but the use case is regarding speed. Yes.
I think that's the key. That I think H1 H2 is easy. That's a really easy case for upgrade because of how M was implemented. And how actually not even Envoy, it's sort of how protocol negotiation is defined in the spec. Spitty or these other sort of tunneling mechanisms that require HTTP connect, that's a whole different ballgame in Envoy. And it's a lot more difficult to create an ergonomic API for it.
Yeah. So for what it's worth, it you are sort of specifying the speedy with the appropriate version number in the HCM Envoy filter config does actually work. So I don't know if Envoy officially supports this upgrade path or not, but it seems to work for now.
When you say seem to work, do you mean seem to work through an Envoy filter?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Did you happen to write a sample Envoy filter somewhere in an issue? So just so we can see.
Yeah, that would be good. I agree.
Let me see if I can find one.
Well, given we have a couple of topics on the agenda, can we follow up next week on this? Because it doesn't sound like we will be able to reach a conclusion fast.
I guess what I'm hearing is that we don't know where to place the API, but I'm not sure if there's objection on whether we want to do this or not.
I have on the issue, I left that comment of questioning whether we do need to do this at all. So if you could take a look at that, that would be great. I agree we need to do something. I'm not sure that we need an API to expose what upgrades you allow versus just allowing any upgrades or something like that. It's at the bottom of this issue, yeah.
All right. So I think for this one, Aniben, I would like you come back with the Envoy filter example and also think a little bit more about do we really need this to John's question. And then maybe we can have another discussion in the next meeting when you have the data. Does that make sense to you?
Yep, sure. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much. Keith, I think you are up next.
Yeah, so this topic kind of comes from me looking at several of the issues that have been open over the last few weeks / months and doing some general triage. There are a lot of various asks around our generated gateways, and users wanting to configure affinity and tolerations and taint and a whole suite of things that they currently can't set. Part of the friction here is that we went from the when we might kind of moved from the Helm ingress gateway to gateway API style Istio managed ingress gateways. And so users could modify the config map to change that kind of the YAML that Istio uses to generate the YAML template Istio uses for waypoints and Kubernetes gateways. But having done that myself manually, it's fairly error prone. You don't get like kind of great syntax handling. It's a slower feedback loop. Indentation gets all sort of weird. So I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to take a stab at kind of codifying this out broadly, so that users can set any number of fields. I'll start with that question first before going into the specific mechanism. Ben, you can't use Kubernetes Gateway API
Oh, okay.
with the Helm. Yeah. Same thing with like waypoints, for example. Would you install a waypoint with Helm? Maybe, but you lose some of the benefits of like automatic management, reconciliation, those sort of things.
Right. You'd lose that, but like theoretically, it should be possible to do if you really want to hack the YAML all up, depending on what you are trying to achieve. But I agree, it's not ideal.
Yeah. So John points out the big question is what that API is, and that's sort of the open question. I wanted to try to see if there were if there's big opposition to opening up this flexibility to users in general, and if there's not, then we can go into a discussion of what that API looks like. Gateway API has a spec here, and in fact, in Vita 1.2, which released this week, it's gonna be moved to standard, where you can set a parameters ref on a gateway resource. It's basically say, hey, create my gateway and use this resource to give you information about how the gateway deployment should be created. Colin uses this. I think the API that Istio already has that's closest to what we'd be discussing is proxy config. I don't know how I feel about resurrecting proxy config at this point. There's a lot of baggage with that API. And I don't know, it feels messier. I think my slight preference at this point would be to find a different name and kind of start from scratch with a new API. So basically what this API would look like is, I meant like mental, like baggage of the resource existing, maybe being used in some places we don't know, like that sort of baggage, not necessarily bloat, but agreed, right? There's not a lot already there. But if we brought proxy config back or had a similar resource, what it would have is basically I forget the Istio operator name for it, but Istio operator has like a suite of things like K8s, I think is actually the name of it, where you can set all those different Kubernetes variables, plus also some proxy config type things. What should your concurrency be for the waypoints or gateways that you're running? I don't know, I could spitball a number of things. Things like the, I don't know, we want a custom bootstrap template per se, but we could put a lot of stuff there, in theory. And it does feel like sort of a missing capability now that we didn't have to do. It wasn't causing as much friction in the past because people had Helm and they had post rendering in Helm. They could change whatever they wanted. Now that we're kind of going to like more management of things, and I think ambient users are going to start asking for this if they haven't already, it just feels like a hole here.
Yeah, my main concern is I don't really want an API that is the Kubernetes API. I don't run an API at all, really. Like we already have a Helm API, and then there's a Kubernetes API, and then there's the operator API, which is kind of, it to some extent, decreasing. And then now we'd have like a third API. Like we'll never do a good job at making an API abstraction over Kubernetes. So I'm just wondering if we don't want to do that at all, and if we just want to have a arbitrary patching mechanism, like we have with injection.
And we have a way to do arbitrary patching today, right? Through the injection template.
It doesn't work as well for gateways as it does for sidecars. I don't think you can have two templates that are merged. So it's hard to overlay them because you have to go modify the main one, and then that doesn't really work well with Helm. But it could be like if we, in the scope of solving problems, that's a much easier problem to solve than designing a whole new API. Like we could make them allow multiple, for instance.
The other, yeah, you have to allow multiple, and then there's the question of which API, like how do you say for this gateway I'm creating, use this template? In gateway, and the reason I'm a bit partial toward the new API is because gateway API sort of has that spec for how to do it, which necessitates a Kubernetes API somewhat, unfortunately. We could choose to forego that, but then we're sort of running counter to the gateway API spec, which is not the worst thing in the world in this case. I think it's just extended, parameters ref is purely extended or not even like required. But it does feel a bit strange to me to kind of forego the standard here.
I didn't necessarily mean that we can't have a parameters ref. We could parameters ref to a config map, or we could parameter ref to a CRD that takes a opaque map of data that we pass through or something.
It could be an injection config too.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does it add value to do it that way versus the annotation? Maybe, maybe not. But the two aren't incompatible necessarily.
That's
like
fair.
The main benefit of that, the fact that the parameter ref can be on the class or the gateway, right? And like that gives you the ability to like override at the gateway level if something is on the class or whatever. Like that's the behavior you want to get out of using parameter ref, I guess.
I don't think we actually have parameters ref in for these for the in-cluster gateway infrastructure gap. There's actually not a parameters ref on the gateway class. I don't think that was ever implemented.
Okay.
So it's just a matter
gateways.
of just gateways. And I'm also fine with a config map, just being able to target something. And in fact, the config map might be the easiest, least invasive way to go about doing that. Then the question becomes, because at that point you can literally just write a config map for every gateway if you want to. The only question at that point becomes versioning and not versioning, but sort of maturing what that API looks like. And maybe it's just there's a feat with the raw password to the pod spec. Who knows? I'm getting into designing at this point, but I would be okay with that. Is what I'm trying to say.
So as a next step, Keith, do you think maybe it makes sense to write some doc around this, focusing on what are the top scenario you're trying to address and what are the potential solutions?
Yeah, I'm
Whether
happy
it's
to.
config map or parameter ref.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. And just sort of collect, because I've seen at least 3 issues in the past couple of weeks about I want to set affinity for my waypoint, or I want to set this for my KH gateway and I can't. So I just kind of want to see what the appetite was. Happy to put together a couple of solutions at the next step. It would be nice. I will say it would be nice to come to a decision on proxy config. I do think, if I recall correctly, I think the last recorded decision around it was like, sure, we'll keep it sort of perma beta. But it would be, if we have parameters ref, I don't know that I see a reason for proxy config resource. So just throwing that out there. as well. I might address that in the doc.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much, Keith. Whitney, I think you are up next. Are you here?
Yes. Hi, everyone. As you know, around this time last year, we created the enhancement subgroup as a response to like the general confusion we were having in terms of like what features were stable and what were stuck in promo beta, and like how could we communicate stability better to our users. And since then, at least since release 1.22, we got a lot of like progress in terms of moving our core APIs to V1. And I've also observed in like our working group calls, TOC calls, the overall community has gotten better at like thinking of enhancements related stuff around graduation and like stability. So as of now, I do not think there is a reason for us to continue meeting as an enhancement subgroup. So I would like to see if there's anyone who objects to sunsetting the enhancement subgroup right now. I imagine in the future there may be other reasons or sprints that we may have to do around enhancements. But for now, I think this is like a really good time to sort of like sunset the subgroup. Is there any objections to that?
No objections. I do want to take the time to thank you for leading that enhancement group. We've seen a lot of work, good work come out of that group. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no other comment, let's move to the next topic. Ben, on the Istio
Yeah.
remote.
So this is the PR here is functionally what this does is it removes the Istio D remote chart and just combines it with the Istio D chart that you supply a profile for. So if you're not aware, we have had an Istio D remote chart for a while in the tree, which has not been documented, but it's a Helm chart that is basically built with a make file where we basically copy 90% of Istio D to a different directory and say it's Istio D remote. So we have two parallel charts basically that are maintained by a make file, and there's some stuff that doesn't go into it that stays in Istio discovery, and some of it comes from base. I'm trying to disentangle some of that stuff. But the fundamental thing though is that the Istio D remote chart, since it's built from a make file, it really is exactly at like 90% identical to Istio D regular, except there's like 3 resources that are not copied over: the deployment, service account, like one other thing. And it's super easy in Helm to just say, look, if remote not enabled, don't deploy those. So I don't see the need to have an entirely separate chart with like, a make file blob that copies, 10 things over. And you're working in Istio D remote, in Istio D, and so you don't know it, but that file you're working on, that template you're working on might end up in Istio D remote and be used in a weird way and you not realize it. It's just kind of confusing. So this condenses it, right? So instead of Helm installing Istio D remote, you just install Istio discovery with the profile remote. That's it. And we delete the Istio D remote chart. What I'm asking for, I'm working with Niranjan to make sure he's doing the actual documentation for it. And so I wanted to get this like in a clean state before we document it, not after, hopefully, which is why I'm doing this now. And hopefully he'll get the documentation up, but then we won't have to worry about it anymore. And hopefully have some doc tests around it and all that jazz, so we can have less confusion about what flags you actually set to do this in Helm, because it's not super clear, even in the integration tests. The question I'm asking is, so since we haven't documented the Helm chart Istio D remote at all, can this PR go ahead and delete the Istio D remote chart and just we write the doc saying, here's how you do it with the profile? Or do we want to say we have we add the new way in and leave the old Istio D remote chart around for a release or two? Maybe we don't maintain it. We're no longer updating it with a make file or whatever, but we publish it for release 2 and then delete it. Like, should we just delete it now, or do we want to leave the old chart in place for a release or two for some reason? Again, it's not, we don't document the direct use of the Istio D remote chart.
Are you sure we don't document it?
Yeah, I haven't been able to find it anyway. Not via
I
Helm.
thought we documented as part of multi-cluster. I'm trying to find it now.
Yeah, I couldn't find any references. That's what Niranjan is adding. He wants to add docs reasonably enough, but I couldn't find any references to it publicly in our current docs. It's all Istio control, not directly via Helm.
Okay, I was looking at ambient, sorry. I remember seeing it on the multi-cluster one. I could be wrong though. Even the primary remote using it, maybe I was wrong.
I didn't see it in there. If you find it, let me know. But it's all IOP and Istio control. It's not directly via Helm.
Oh, it's
It-
not just through Helm.
Yeah.
Okay, that may be why.
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
using under the cover. Okay, got you.
Yeah, it's under the covers, and so that's less of a concern. But in terms of like using the chart directly, it's not documented. So should we just delete it? Is the question, or should we keep it around and leave it published for, I don't know, however many releases? I'm in favor of deleting it personally because I think it'll be fine. I'd rather delete it and just document the right way as opposed to having two ways of documenting the right way and hoping to remember to delete the old way some other time in the future. But I'm open to different opinions on that.
Okay, if we don't document it, I think that's much less concern. So am I reading it? It would be kind of like transparent to the user then?
Yeah, the Istio control IOP stuff shouldn't change much. It's more that as we go, we want to get it the Helm API where it needs to be before Niranjan. You know, he wants to document it. We want to get the API good before he documents it, so that when we do actually document it for the first time, it's correct. That's pretty much it. Yeah, this stuff shouldn't change much at all. Most of the same flags are supported, like the Istio remote injection URL, validation URL, that sort of thing. There may be other users using it. That's the thing. Like, I think there are probably some people using it, but it's not documented. So
I know LVMB are using external control plane because they set it on public.
Yeah.
So I mean, as long as the doc continue to work, I have no concern.
Yeah, we can upgrade note in the release notes saying that, hey, if you were doing this, now you do this. And it wasn't supported to begin with at any stability level. So if that's causes a problem, let us know. But that's kind of the deal. Again, once we document it, it's a different story, right? We've told people this is how you do it, but we haven't done that yet. So I'm less worried about just doing it the right way. But again, happy to hear other opinions on that.
Are you sorry? I was missing for most of this conversation. Are we saying it's not documented because it's Helm and we only documented Istio Cuddle?
Yes.
So yeah.
Then are we keeping the chart for Istio Cuddle?
We are just using Istio. We're just using Pilot. So that chart.
Oh, because you don't necessarily know that there's a chart when you use Istio Cuddle.
Yeah. So
okay,
it's basically
all the Istio Cuddle usage still remains the same.
Yes, it should. There may be one spot where we need to change, where you like would have disabled Pilot before they get going, but that's about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. For some reason I was thinking the charts were more directly exposed in Istio Cuddle. Cool, that makes sense.
I thought they were too, and then I looked at the docs and they totally are not. So I don't think it's a big deal. But yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Ben, for walking through our concerns. Sounds like there's no obvious concern at this moment.
All right, Niranjan and I can go forward with that. And if we encounter any issues or there are objections or somebody has a complaint about it, we can handle it. Sounds good to me. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Stephen, you're up next.
Yeah, so I've been working on the performance test, and then kind of Lynn brought this issue up, but I thought I'd talk about it here. In Envoy 1.21, the tests show around that Sidecar adds around 0.2 milliseconds of latency, while currently it adds 0.5 or 6. And it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on because there isn't a lot of documentation about how these tests were run and whatnot. And then when I run them, I get similar results across versions. So it seems like it's a testing thing. But I guess my question for the group is, does a 0.6 millisecond latency added for Sidecar sound reasonable?
You could tell me any number between 0.2 and 2, and maybe even 10. and it would sound reasonable. There's too many variables in play on the hardware. So
Okay.
now the thing that is a bit concerning is this one versus the last one. I know we're on the same hardware, and I'm wondering if they maybe incorrectly used HBone for the sidecars or something, versus the standard MPLS. But the reason for most of the other changes is due to different hardware. So like if you just run the same test on these machines versus like some low tier cloud machine, it's like a night and day difference. It's tremendous.
Right, because the difference between this one and the last one aren't too different. The one Lynn brought up was from, so 124 and 122 are similar, but 122 and 21 are very different, but it doesn't seem like it's a huge issue.
I think around 121 was when we started testing on the CNCF stuff, which is really fast. And then 122, we started doing ambient, which I'm suspecting potentially started incorrectly testing HBone, but I'm not sure.
And they said when we talked to that person, I forgot his name now, Suyab. Okay, so when he did it, he was testing ambient with HBone for sidecar, and that's why the number for sidecar was very, very high. But what puzzles me though, Stephen, is I think your number was very similar to this one in your PR. What I don't understand is you said you are not using HBone for sidecar, if I understood you correctly. So is that true? But your sidecar number was still very high like this?
Does H1 get enabled automatically if I do an ambient install?
Yes, that's the thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so okay, so
probably
that's why I keep emphasizing you want to use
Yeah,
the default profile. So because in default profile, HBone is disabled. So we would expect if you were to produce the number, because we've done performance tests a lot in our company too, I would expect your sidecar would be around ambient layer 4 and layer 7. Either slightly up or slightly down, but not a lot up, because right now you're like 30% more latency of, I would say 50% more, right, from 0.56 to 79. Yeah, so that's a shocking. So
okay, I'll triple check that. Okay, thank you everybody.
well, thank you so much for actually running the test, fixing up the environment. I know it's a lot of frustration, and bring this up to everybody for discussing. So we really appreciate you, go back and running again and get the right number.
Yeah, of course.
All right, thank you. Keith, I think you are our last topic for today. Hey, Keith, did you just join?
I've been dealing with Wi-Fi issues all week.
You need a hardware Ethernet in your office.
Yeah, well, good thing I'm moving next week. So hopefully that'll fix it. It's weird though because my wife doesn't have the same issue. I don't know. Are we on my topic then?
Yes, you're on the last topic for today.
Okay, wonderful. I love the chat. Chat's got jokes. But anyway, I want to just bring this PR up. There's been a contributor who has been trying to get this going since July, and looks like we're in need of some TOC input in order to move forward here. From a high level, what this is trying to do is expose the retry budget API within destination rule. There was some talk around whether or not we should wait for Gateway API. We can look at the various issues for some discussion. Gateway API is meant to tackle some of this in the retry arena, but I don't know if Mike is on here since he worked on the implementation. Yeah, Mike is here. But yeah, the maybe Mike can talk to us about where the Gateway API implementation starts and stops. From what I found, I wasn't able to see anything about retry budgeting, but I could be wrong.
So retry budgeting is not going to be in 1.2, but it was part of the design consideration for basically allowing future scope. So it's something that I'm going to talk with Flynn about because Linkerd obviously cares a lot about that. for 1.3 potentially. So we basically like have design space to be able to do it. We just do not have it as part of what's coming in 1.2 this week.
Gotcha.
Does
Okay.
that
So
help?
So do you think
Yes.
it could potentially come in the next release? I assume there's another 2-3 months wait for the next release.
It could. It would probably be like a 3 to 4 month wait for the next release. It could come in that. And it's something that if we wanted to come in that, like we can work directly with Istio contributors to design what we need there. I know there was a few folks that were on a call a couple weeks ago that seemed to have significant interest in it and have been like bumping this issue. So yeah, I think that if we wanted a gateway API, like let's do the design work in gateway API and let's do it there.
Yeah, because also we have to implement twice too, right? We have to implement in destination
Yeah.
rule and in the new API. Okay, so should I record that in the meetings to provide the feedback to this user? Oh, you are here. Perfect, Eric. So okay.
Hi, yeah, I joined the meeting a few weeks ago to discuss this, and yeah, I think another user was leaving comments on one of my PRs again, asking for it to be reopened. But yeah, I have no objections to the path you guys are taking or anything. I actually didn't realize this was even on the agenda. I was just showing up to listen in, but
Well, thank you.
I
We
didn't know
love
this was
you
on the
showing
agenda
up.
either. I just I saw it was bumped on the issue recently.
yeah, I would have just added to the agenda today. So I had the tech worked out.
All right. Sounds like we have consensus to try to drive this in the next release of the gateway API. And John just comment we can pull it up as soon as it's merged, so we can pull it up in our API.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Eric, let's sync up offline about trying to start working on like a prototype design for what this might look like in Gateway API.
awesome. Yep. Sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Just make a quick comment here. Right. John, I think you just added this. Nice to
Yeah,
have.
this is just, we talked about this last week, but there was only like 5 people there last week. There's a couple of list of things that have been kind of stalled that would be nice to have. Let me just copy it, I guess. So one of them we got done, so that's good. I think someone picked up this task, but I'm not sure how much progress they've made, if they're still working on it. But there's basically, was just wanted to see if anyone was interested in picking up any of these tasks. So one is for the new FIPS build. We need to make some changes to Envoy to adopt it. Then another one was, this actually doesn't really need to be on here anymore. It's made substantial progress. So, but it was just a review of the PR that had been in work in progress stage for like 6 months. So it obviously wasn't getting eyes. But this last one is this Istio Cuddle to Helm migration. We have a prototype. Me and Mitch have both done, well, Mitch built it and then I tweaked it slightly. But it needs a bit more work, testing, maybe some validation of what we should actually do. So I'd love to get some eyes on this, whether that's just opinions or even someone fully taking over the PR. I'd be happy to have someone do that. So if anyone is interested, let me know.
Hi, John. Actually I had volunteered for the FIPS compliance thing. I should have an update by next week. You know, like like I'm following up with my company on the like CLA and all that. So I should have an update by next week.
Awesome. Yeah, and I didn't put it here because I thought you were doing a bad job or anything. I just copy and pasted from last week. So it's awesome that you're working on that. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, obviously feel free to reach out.
Sure.
Keith, what's up?
Did you say there are Envoy changes needed for one of these, the set compliance policy?
Yeah, so basically my understanding is that, yeah, you need a set compliance policy, basically.
Okay. Feel free to assign that. Oh, that's not an issue for it, but
Oh, that's what
you can
Prasad's
word it to
working
one.
on, so.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I misunderstood. Never mind.
Oh, so should we
No worries.
assign this to you, Prasad?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
Look into it.
if I can find you.
You're missing an R, but you might not be in the Istio org potentially, so.
Okay, maybe you can just pin me or pin John. We can make sure we can assign you.
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, nice.
And then is anybody, oh, there's a draft PR for the Rust update. Oh, that's in Cloudflare. Never mind. Okay. So I think
Yeah.
everything's got an owner then. From
Yeah, the
Istio
Rust
side.
one's honestly problematic because we have absolutely no control over that, and it does not seem to be making any progress. So
Oh, so that would mean zTunnel would not be able to do 1.3, but the rest could potentially.
yeah,
Got it.
So this is actually somewhat relevant because I know that there was a, I think someone from ChainGuard was talking about changing the default crypto implementation to the AWS one.
yeah, it wasn't the default; it was just adding another option. So
Oh, okay, gotcha. I'll follow up offline. I'm curious as to the appetite for yet another option for OpenSSL, but we can discuss offline for that.
yeah, I'll put it this way: when I wrote my comment saying that I was in favor of adding the AWS one, I knew that within a week someone would say OpenSSL, and that my comment my comment was very specifically crafted to put out what I felt were the requirements for someone to add OpenSSL as well. So I think that's fair.
Okay, I will double check and see what your comment says. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's basically don't make it hell to have multiple things on there and make it sustainable. So that's all. It's not so hard to add different providers, I think. RustPLS does all the hard work for us. So.
All right, makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Anything else we should be discussing, or anyone interested in help out with the Helm migration work John had in flight? All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Give you guys 12 minutes back. Thanks. Bye.
See you folks soon.
See you soon.
Hey, y'all.